We've all heard it. Trust your gut. This advice has been given to each of us by well-intentioned parents, teachers, coaches, and even Oprah. I get it. The point is to inspire us to have more confidence in our decision-making, but there's a fundamental problem with the advice. Trusting your gut relies on an operating system that is flawed. The operating system our brain uses is made up of subjective data points. We have an experience, or we read something, we talk to someone we trust, and it gets stored as that's just the way things are. We then use that to make decisions in our day-to-day interactions. What if you were having heart palpitations while you were at the dentist, which may or may not describe my dental visits, and you mentioned to the dentist, wow, my heart is really racing, and she says, gosh, my gut says it's nothing. You're just nervous, which may or may not be true, but do you just set it aside as if it is the truth? Later you're having dinner, same heart racing. Do you think, well, my dentist said it's fine, and I really trust her gut? Or maybe you're investing money on the gut feeling of a colleague at work that isn't even an investor. Oh, that new Bitcoin, it's going to be great. I just have a good gut feeling about it. I invested all of our savings in it, and you should too. Listen, the scary part is that his gut feeling about Bitcoin is about as reliable as yours. He probably talked to some friend he really likes that had a hunch, and now he's got a good gut feeling too. Obviously, in those situations, you wouldn't trust their gut feelings, and you shouldn't trust yours either. Gut feelings are simply reactions from things we've experienced in the past. They're mostly unconscious, and they can affect our decision-making without us even being fully aware of it. We have to investigate those hunches and not just go with our gut reactions. What about when we're in danger? After all, we're trained to trust our gut when we feel threatened. Yes, in some situations, your instincts will keep you from being eaten by a lion, but the more subtle forms of danger elude us. You don't always recognize you're in danger when you live in an ecosystem that diminishes your power and marginalizes people, while unknowingly suppressing your value. This happened to me when I worked for a big corporation. I was finally promoted to vice president role. I went to the VP meetings for the first 6 months, super nervous and trying hard not to say anything that would reveal me as an imposter. 6 months into my big new job, my now business partner, Wally Schmader, pulled me out of the meeting and said, listen, we promoted you because of your diversity, your experience in the field, and you've just come in here and become just like everyone else, agreeing with everything we're saying and not speaking up. If you don't start using your voice, you're at risk of losing this job. That was such a huge wake-up call for me, as I was trying so hard to fit in that I forgot my own value. And it's a mistake I've made way too many times. Besides not speaking up in a meeting, if I'm simply relying on the gut of my dentist about just being nervous, and I don't get a physical to test my heart health, well, that's on me, and it could have disastrous consequences. Having a brain that operates both unconsciously and consciously creates efficiencies, but here's the downside. Our brain is wired for efficiency, but it is not wired for accuracy, and not thinking for ourselves makes us play small and disappear, oftentimes unconsciously aligning us with other people's agendas. This causes us to lose our voice, our purpose, and even moves us away from our own value system. There is a good side to our brains operating in an unconscious way. Can you imagine having to put time and energy into deciding every single move you make in a day? Thinking through, now I'm getting up, I'm putting my feet on the floor, now I'm walking, left, right, you get it. Most of us operate so much in the unconscious, we find ourselves questioning routine things like, did I shut the garage door after I pull out? Did I turn off the iron? Did I set the alarm? I bet I'm not the only one that's driven back home more than once to check all three of those things. Overthinking things can also be exhausting. I used to get decision fatigue before I left my house each morning, just trying to decide what to wear. I did finally solve that, as evidenced by the 10 black and 10 white shirts hanging in my closet that are all exactly alike. In psychology, there's a term called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it simply means people think they know more than they do. They overestimate their competence in any given situation. I used to be notoriously guilty of this when it comes to painting. I would see a painting and think, oh my gosh, I can paint that. How hard can it be? Until I took art lessons and realized there's a lot more to it than it seems. What's important and dangerous about the Dunning-Kruger effect is well-intentioned people often speak with authority, and that can inhibit our active thinking process and influence our gut feeling. We hear their comments, file them away as facts, and now confirmation bias sets in. Confirmation bias is when we believe only the things that support what we already believe to be true. In other words, we can't even see the information that's right in front of us because we're operating with our gut feelings. Compound that with our tendency to give gut feelings more value than we should, and this diminishes our agency and contribution. We don't have time to question every thought that comes in our mind, so we become lazy. It's easier to go with our gut, but the 1% of the time that the system fails us is costly. There's a mind-blowing statistic that illuminates the problem with trusting your gut. Your brain can take in around 11 million pieces of information in any given moment. 11 million. That's hard to even take in as you're hearing it. The problem is, it can only consciously recognize about 40 of the 11 million data points. There's a filtering process that happens that allows the 40 pieces of information into your conscious thoughts. And that filter is created by what you have and have not been exposed to before. And the filter is not discerning. Said differently, your gut feeling is only as good as anything you've been exposed to in the past. This can create blind spots that can lead us to be overconfident in our decision-making and put too much stock in our gut feelings. I'm in a lot of conversations with well-intentioned people that do not see some of the issues with marginalized communities because, well, they haven't experienced it. It's why proximity is so incredibly important, why open dialogue and thoughtful inspection of your experiences is required. I can also tell you from personal experience that I've been so incredibly sure of a decision only to realize later that I was missing some important data points that would have altered my decision dramatically. I've chosen the wrong business partners, stayed in a job too long, dated too many of the wrong people. You get the point. Here's what I now know. When you go with your gut reaction, you're selecting based on a lack of information. The other consideration is this. Your good gut feeling might be guiding you in the right direction, but here's the question I would offer for your consideration. Who or what are you discounting because you don't have the same good gut feeling? In the diversity, equity, and inclusion work we do in our organization, we often find affinity bias at play. People have a tendency to hire people that they can connect with easily. They have a lot in common with them. I mean, if you went to the University of Oklahoma, I already like you better. But who did you not hire that would have been great because you didn't have that good gut feeling? You already know hiring is a great example because you don't hire someone that you didn't get a good gut feeling about. Or the opposite, you do hire them only to find out they were a nightmare hire. Your gut says don't raise your hand, that's a bad idea. Then someone else says you're a great idea and you don't get the credit. Or you meet someone and you're sure they're the one. And it lasts, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. It can also make you susceptible to groupthink. Trying so hard to fit in, you don't actually make the time to assert your true views. And because of that, we choose mood over mission to drive our choices. Consider a few things worth integrating into your daily decision-making based on your gut, aka generally unreliable thoughts. Seek information from different sources. My dad always said, don't believe anything you hear and half of what you see. Verify your decisions. That still seems like solid advice to me. Engage in conversations with people that have a different point of view. I've definitely had my mind changed a few times by meaningful conversations for sure. Question obvious statements. In our staff meetings and strategic planning sessions, we often appoint someone to push back on things that are subjective but stated as facts. And take some time to do some soul searching on big issues. What do you believe? Your gut feeling is easily influenced by those around you. I'm going to leave you with 2 very important thoughts. Always ask yourself this with some regularity around your decision-making. What am I missing? And don't believe everything you think. It's time to get off autopilot and reclaim your right and duty to think for yourself. And check your gut at the door.